Hello, this is Teresa with Teresa Marie Art and Design. And tonight, on this April 22nd, I am reading a book that is illustrated by Susan Jeffers. I read it a year ago on April 22nd. The book is called Brother Eagle, Sister Sky. I will be sharing the paintings in her book. And behind me, I have one of my paintings that I used in a interactive three-dimensional display honoring the Pacific salmon. If you look just 2 blocks this way, I have the Bud Bay Inlet, and it is a saltwater inlet that goes into the Deschutes River. Many of the salmon, they travel up Bud Bay Inlet, up to the Deschutes River, up the waterfalls, and they spawn. So this shares a little bit about that. And as a gardener and as an artist, I am always hoping to inspire and teach all about native plants, about gardening that honors the earth, that helps to be respectful of our air and our water and clean water systems and clean air, and supporting wildlife and pollinators and all in anything pertaining to nature. So tonight I'm reading the book, starting off with this painting here. So Chief Seattle was one of the leaders of the tribes in the Seattle area in the Pacific Northwest, and the city of Seattle is named after him. The correct pronunciation of his name is either Seattle or Seattle, with which is what we tend to interpret it as Chief Seattle. This is published by Dial Books in New York. In a time so long ago that nearly all traces of it are lost in the prairie dust, an ancient people were a part of the land that we love and call America. Living here for thousands of years, their children became the great Indian civilizations of the Choctaw and Cherokee, Navajo, Iroquois, and Sioux, among many others. Then white settlers from Europe began a bloody war against the Indians, and in the span of a single lifetime, claimed all the Indians' land for themselves, allowing them only small tracts of land to live in. So truly, the Indians are Native Americans or First Nations people, but in this story, it's said as Indians. When the last of the Indian wars were drawing to a close, one of the bravest and most respected chiefs of the Northwest nations, Chief Seattle, sat at a white man's table to sign a paper presented by the new Commissioner of Indian Affairs for the territory. The government in Washington, D.C. wished to buy the land of Chief Seattle's people. With a commanding presence and eyes that mirrored the great soul that lived within, the chief rose to speak to the gathering in a resounding voice. How can you buy the sky? Chief Seattle began. How can you own the rain and the wind? My mother told me every part of this earth is sacred to our people, every pine needle, every sandy shore, every mist in the dark woods, every meadow and humming insect, all are holy in the memory of our people. My father said to me, I know the sap that courses through the trees, as I know the blood that flows in my veins. We are all part of the earth, and it is part of us. The perfumed flowers are our sisters. The bear, the deer, the great eagle, these are our brothers. The rocky crests, the meadows, the ponies, all belong to the same family. The voice of my ancestors said to me, the shining water that moves in the streams and rivers is not simply water, but the blood of your grandfather's grandfather. Each ghostly reflection in the clear waters of the lakes tells of memories in the life of our people. The water's murmur is the voice of your great great grandmother. The rivers are our brothers. They quench our thirst. They carry our canoes and feed our children. You must give to the rivers the kindness you would give to any brother. The voice of my grandfather said to me, the air is precious. It shares its spirit with all the life it supports. The wind that gave me my first breath also received my last sigh. You must keep the land and air apart and sacred as a place where one can go to taste the wind that is sweetened by the meadow flowers. When the last red man and woman have vanished with their wilderness, and their memory is only the shadow of a cloud moving across the prairie, will the shores and forests still be here? Will there be any of the spirit of my people left? My ancestors said to me, this we know. The earth does not belong to us. We belong to the earth. The voice of my grandmother said to me, teach your children what you have been taught. The earth is our mother. What befalls the earth befalls all the sons and daughters of the earth. Hear my voice and the voice of my ancestors, Chief Seattle said. The destiny of your people is a mystery to us. What will happen when the buffalo are all slaughtered, the wild horses tamed? What will happen when the secret corners of the forest are heavy with the scent of many men? When the view of the ripe hills is blotted by talking wires, where will the thicket be? Gone. Where will the eagle be? Gone. And what will happen when we say goodbye to the swift pony and the hunt? It will be the end of living and the beginning of survival. This we know, all things are connected like the blood that unites us. We did not weave the web of life, we are merely a strand in it. Whatever we do to the web, we do to ourselves. We love this earth as a newborn loves its mother's heartbeat. If we sell you our land, care for it as we have cared for it. Hold in your mind the memory of the land as it is when you receive it. Preserve the land and the air and the rivers for your children's children and love it as we have loved it. So I'm going to read in closing Susan Jeffers' words, and she's the illustrator of this book. The origins of Chief Seattle's words are partly obscured by the mists of time. Some call his words a letter and some a speech. What is known is that Chief Seattle was a respected and peaceful leader of one of the Northwest Indian nations. In the mid 1850s, when the government in Washington, D.C. wanted to buy the lands of his exhausted and defeated people, he responded in his native tongue with a natural eloquence stemming from his oral tradition. His words were transcribed by Dr. Henry A. Smith, who knew him well, and that transcription was interpreted and written more than once in this century. Joseph Campbell adapted and brought Chief Seattle's message to a wider audience with his appearances on Bill Moyer's PBS series and in the book The Power of Myth. I, too, have adapted Chief Seattle's message for Brother Eagle, Sister Sky. What matters is that Chief Seattle's message for Brother Eagle, Sister Sky, what matters is that Chief Seattle's words inspired and continue to inspire a most compelling truth. In our zeal to build and possess, we may lose all that we have. We have come late to environmental awareness, but there was a thundering message delivered a century ago by many of the great Native American chiefs, among them Black Elk, Red Cloud, and Seattle. To all of the Native American people, every creature and part of the earth was sacred. It was their belief that to waste or destroy nature and its wonders is to destroy life itself. Their words were not understood in their time. Now they haunt us. Now they have come true. And before it is too late, we must listen. Susan Jeffers. And in closing, I'd like to say that the land that I live on, the property that I have, this was originally Nisqually land and Squaxin Island land by the Squaxin Island people and the Nisqually people. What I've done in my garden is I have chosen not to use any herbicides or pesticides. I use organic fertilizers. I'm introducing native plants. I build rain gardens, and I'm trying to heal the land in a small way on my little small piece of property. So I encourage you to do the same. And thank you for joining me this evening on Earth Day, April 22nd.